Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. You know, there are three things that I love more than just about anything else, and they are, in order, geology, making content on YouTube, and knives. And every morning I wake up and I think to myself, how can I combine these three things today? Well, thankfully, a prime opportunity has presented itself to me. And I have Sharpened Blade to thank for this because he gave me the idea for this video. Today we're going to be talking about hardness, both knife steel hardness and mineral hardness. So a while back, by the time you guys are seeing this video, at the time of recording, this video has not gone live to the public yet, but members can watch it. Anyways, it's a short where I talk about how I like to keep a knife that has a simpler steel with me when I'm doing field work. As a lot of you probably know by now, I'm a geologist. And the reason I like to have a simple steel with me is so I can test mineral hardnesses in the field. And Sharpened Blade asked to see that test on screen. So I made a short about that. It's probably going to be posted the same day as this, but now we're going to be doing a full long form video on it. And I'm really excited about this because this is a topic that I care a lot about. This is something that I have thought about a lot. So we're going to be going kind of in depth. We're not going to get too scientific, I promise. Not too scientific, but we are going to be going in depth into this topic today, and I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Just as an introduction, what am I talking about when I'm talking about testing mineral hardnesses? There's a couple of diagnostic characteristics that you can use to identify minerals. These include the hardness of the mineral, which we'll talk about more, the luster, that's how it reflects light, the cleavage, this is how it breaks, if it breaks into predictable patterns along certain axes, or fracture, where it just kind of breaks randomly. And then there's color, which is really kind of not super useful because color is influenced by a whole lot of different things. Let's see, what did we already talk about? Oh, cleavage. We talked about cleavage. Crystal habit, that's like the shape it takes. There's a lot of different methods that you can use to identify a mineral. But with hardness, basically what it is you take a mineral sample and you scratch it with another material. And that can tell you how hard approximately that mineral is, depending on what was able to scratch it or what it was able to scratch. So I have a bunch of different minerals here. We'll be talking about some of these in today's video, but when I'm in the field and I want to test the hardness of an unknown mineral, I will take out my knife blade and I will either scratch the mineral very lightly or I will scratch the blade of the knife with the mineral. And that can tell me a little bit about the hardness. So let's go ahead and talk about what material hardness even is. All right, so what is hardness? What does it mean to get hard? Well, you see, when two people really love each other, in all seriousness, a material's hardness is the material's ability to resist deformation or scratching. In the knife world, you hear the term wear resistance a lot, and that increases with hardness. Increasing hardness leads to increasing wear resistance. The material is more resistant to deformation. Now, a lot of you probably know, but I'm going to go ahead and go over this for people that might not know. There's a difference between hardness and toughness. A lot of times people get these confused, which I think is understandable. Hardness and toughness in a colloquial sense are kind of the same thing, but when we're talking about especially material hardness versus toughness, they're very different. Something that is tough will deform and then come back to shape. Something that is hard resists deformation. It will break before it deforms. And the example that I would like to use when I talk about this with people is, imagine I'm holding a basketball and a ceramic plate, and I drop them both. What's going to happen? Well, the basketball is going to bounce and the ceramic plate is going to shatter, right? And this is an extreme example, but the basketball is tougher, the ceramic plate is harder. And this is kind of the same thing for minerals. It's the same thing for like industrial materials. In geology, we have this term called ductile deformation, and it's kind of synonymous with toughness. If we're talking about rock units, when rocks are deep below the surface, they're hot, they're ductile. That means they're kind of plasticky. Think about like have you ever seen someone pulling hot taffy? That's kind of what rocks at deep depths. Wow, that's what rocks at depth act like, and they can bend and they can be manipulated with, but they can return to whatever state they started at. It's elastic, right? Brittle deformation is the other side of that, and that's what happens to rocks when they get close to the surface and they cool down. They become hard and brittle, like we know rocks right now, right? They're hard. And when these are put under stress, they break, they fault. So you see faulting, and you'll see these rock units that are displaced. That's brittle deformation. If you see rock units that are kind of bent and wavy, that means that was ductile deformation that happened at depth, and then those rocks were exhumed. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about hardness. Is it a material's ability to resist deformation or scratching, which is going to be very, very important in this video. Now, there are a lot of hardness testing methodologies out there. You guys are all probably familiar with Rockwell hardness. That's what we use to get hardnesses on knife steels. The Mohs hardness scale is what we use to measure mineral hardnesses, but there's a bunch of them. The Vickers, the Lieb, the Breno hardness scale. But we're not going to go into any of those. The only two we're going to be talking about today are the Mohs hardness and Rockwell hardness. So let's go ahead and give a rundown on each of those. I did a lot of research for this video, and I want to mention that all of my sources are going to be linked in the description below. So if you want to do some further study, which I highly encourage, click on those links. They're great resources. They'll take you to all kinds of good information. Have a lot of fun. Let's get back to the video. Let's go ahead and start talking about the Rockwell hardness testing method. I'm sure all of you are familiar with it to some degree. We've all heard Rockwell hardness, Rockwell hardness, Rockwell hardness so many times in the knife community. Certain sites will list the hardness of their steels with the knife products. There's kind of a big deal with making sure that your knife is hardened correctly. A lot of people care about that to optimize performance. So it's something that we all talk about, but how much do you actually know? Well, I'm going to go ahead and educate you guys a little bit. So the idea for testing of a material's hardness by indentation was first come up with in 1908. But the Rockwell brothers, Hugh and I think the other one was Stanley. Hugh and Stanley first patented their method of indentation testing in 1914. So this technology has been around for a while. And what do I mean when I say indentation testing? Rockwell hardness basically is based off of how much force it takes to indent an area of a material. We've all seen some of the testing videos that are around online where people take these, they look kind of like little pins, little tiny needles almost, and they kind of like poke little holes into a material. But I'm going to go ahead and actually read off of Wikipedia what they say about Rockwell testing, just because I think it's kind of interesting. And by the way, Wikipedia is great. Yes, anyone can edit Wikipedia, but the great thing about Wikipedia is that you can go to the bottom of the page and find all of the cited sources and check those out for yourself, which I have done. I've read a lot about metallurgy, and I think Wikipedia is a great place to start research. So just a little tip from me. Don't trust Wikipedia entirely, but use it to get sources. That's what I'm going to say. The equation we're going to start off with the equation for Rockwell hardness. This is actually a calculation that happens automatically in the machines these days, but here's what the equation is. The equation for Rockwell hardness is HR, that's your hardness, equals N minus HD, where D is the depth in millimeters from the zero load point, and N and H are scale factors that depend on the scale of the test being used. We're going to read exactly what that means right here. Here's the operation steps. Step 1, load an initial force. Rockwell hardness test initial test force is 10 kilograms of force, which is equal to 98 newtons or 22 pounds of force. Superficial Rockwell hardness test initial test force is 3 kilograms, force 29 newtons or 6.6 pounds. And we will talk about what superficial Rockwell is here in just a little bit. Step 2, you load the main load. And right here, we're going to look at, there's a table here that shows what your scales and values should be. It depends on what you're testing. You leave the main load in for a dwell time, and that allows the indentation to be completed. Before you release the load, the Rockwell value will typically display on a dial or screen automatically. So that's kind of the process about this. Now, there are a lot of Rockwell scales. A lot. You might think there's just one. There's not. There's actually Rockwell A through V. Actually, there's some letters missing. Let's see. There's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, K, L, M, P, R, S, V. Those A through V methods are all used for testing metals, plastics, things like that. And then there's what we call superficial Rockwell testing. And this is for coatings primarily, or very, very thin materials. And there's a bunch of different things we can get into there, but we're not going to be talking about superficial very much. The most commonly used Rockwell scales are the B and the C. Guess which ones are used for knife blades? Locked in your answer? That's right, it's C. HRC. Whenever you're looking at the HRC value of your knife blade, that is the C scale of Rockwell hardness. And as we know, typically a lot of knife blades, ranging from your more simple steels to some of your high-end stuff, we're looking at anything from like the 55 HRC to like 70 is really, really freaking high. That's like, you know, your ZDP 189 from, not Rockwell, oh my goodness. Those fancy Japanese ones, can't remember what those are anyways. But that's what we're going to be working with in this video too, is the HRC scale. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the Mohs scale of hardness right now. So unlike the Rockwell hardness scale, which relies on indentation, the Mohs scale relies on scratching. It's a measurement of what can scratch what. And the concept is fairly simple. If material A can scratch material B, the material A is harder than material B. The Mohs scale is quite a bit older than the Rockwell scale. It was first introduced in 1812 by a German geologist and mineralogist named Friedrich Mohs. In his book, whose name I cannot pronounce, but I have it written down here. We're going to listen to someone say this, just because I think it's really funny.
Versuch einer Elementarmethode zur naturhistorischen Bestimmung und Erkennung der Fossilien.
One of my brothers speaks German, so he probably would have been able to say that better than I could. But what that translates to is attempt at an elementary method for the natural historical determination and recognition of fossils. So, pretty cool. It is a very, very useful scale. It goes from 1 to 10. Technically, I guess it maybe goes from 0 to 10, if we want to be technical. There are a few things that score lower than 1, but there's nothing that scores a 0. As you might expect, you can't have something that is 0 hardness. But there are technically some things that I guess are lower than a 1. But the scale goes from 1 to 10, with 1 being your softest materials and 10 being your hardest. And because this is based on natural materials, we use talc as kind of the representative of a hardness of 1. Talc is a mineral that is very, very soft. I mean, I don't have any talc in my collection right now because I found talc out in the field, but it's just a pain in the butt to try and take anywhere with you. I one time tried. I put it in this little baggie with some packaging and everything. I thought I was being so careful with it. It was dust by the time I got home, so, you know, whatever. You can actually scratch that with your fingernail. It's so soft. And our hardest naturally occurring element is diamond. That's a 10. And there are a few man-made things that are up there close to diamond. And one of them is like boron nitride, I think. Yeah, boron nitride. So there are man-made materials that are pretty hard, but this is, you know, largely a natural thing. Now, this is not a numerical scale. This is a comparative scale, okay? And what that means is that there are no real, like, set calculations for these different hardnesses like there would be for the Rockwell hardness. Everything is based on compared to something else. I'm going to read off of this site called efunda.com that I think sums it up really, really nicely. Since Mohs hardness scale uses existing common minerals as reference measurements, it is convenient to use but does not give a continuous range of measurements. For instance, diamond, a tin, is 140 times harder than corundum, which is 9. Whereas fluorspar, which is fluorite, fluorspar is the industrial term for this, which is a hardness of 4, is only marginally about 10% harder than calcite, a 3. As a result, the hardness conversion, oh, and this is a hardness conversion calculator. I'm not going to read the rest of that. But there you go. Again, it's comparative, not necessarily quantitative. So there's a little bit of leeway. And of course, as with anything that is a natural element, there's going to be some inconsistencies sometimes. Sometimes a mineral that is a hardness of 5 might be a little bit harder just because it has inclusions or it's ingrown with something else. Something that there's elements sprinkled in there that are kind of changing its chemistry a little bit. Things like that happen. But by and large, this is a really, really useful tool for identifying different minerals when we're out in the field, away from a laboratory, microscope, all the other different analytical high-tech tools that we have. Most field geologists will carry a couple of extra items with them to help with testing a mineral's hardness in the field. These can include a copper penny, a pocket knife, a glass plate, something like that. Fingernails are pretty useful. Sometimes I leave 1 or 2 of my fingernails a little bit long so I can scratch minerals with them. But discovering a mineral's hardness is a very, very useful identification method. Now, again, there are lots and lots of other ways to identify certain minerals. For example, like this piece of calcite here, I would know this is calcite as soon as I pick it up because I can see the cleavage, I can see its crystal habit. I would never mistake it for this chunk of quartz here that also has a really, really nice crystal habit. But sometimes things aren't ideal. And let's say, for example, you're looking at a rock and it has some minerals filling in some fractures in it. And it's just this white mineral, it's just kind of a massive blob in there. And you just want to know, what's filling this in? Is this silica or is this carbonate? Is this quartz or calcite? So you take out your knife and you scratch it and like, it's soft, calcite. Bam. You know, that was a 2-second little test and it gave you that information. Something that I've done in the past is, is this little crystal apatite or is it beryl? Well, let's scratch it. Beryl is quite a bit harder than apatite. It's apatite, right? So it's very, very useful tool. Now, a knife blade on the Mohs hardness scale comes in at a 5.5, which is a really useful mark. Anything above that, you're looking at your topaz, quartz, corundum, diamond, things like that. Very hard stuff, but also there's not a whole lot that gets super hard, right? And so it's kind of nice if your material is harder than your knife blade. It's going to be easy to narrow it down by process of elimination, and hopefully you're familiar with the geology in your area somewhat. You know maybe what to expect. And then anything that's softer than that, you can use other things to test the hardness. You can use a copper penny. You can use your fingernail like we already talked about, or you can use any kind of other identification method. Now, something that I have always found interesting, and we're going to get into this in a little bit. A lot of times when you look at Mohs hardness scales, like I have one pulled up here that's from the National Park Service, they have the steel nail labeled as a 6.5. I have not noticed any difference between like steel nails and a knife blade. And a lot of times, hopefully, your knife blade would be a little bit harder than a steel nail. Some steel nails I know are hardened specifically for getting through different materials. Some of them are differentially hardened where the tip is a little bit harder than the rest of it. But like most steel nails, and I even did some research into this, most steel nails are not anything special when it comes to hardness. So, yeah, I'm not sure about that one there. Maybe we'll do some testing on that. But, yeah, my main interest in this topic of the Mohs hardness scale in relation to the Rockwell hardness scale started when I was taking my mineralogy class. Man, that was so long ago. It was really, really cool. But I just kind of started thinking, I wonder how much increasing the HRC on your pocket knife will increase its Mohs hardness. And something I realized was that when I used, and it was actually these two knives specifically, I did a little bit of testing myself. When I used my more traditional steels, like on this case knife, they were scratching, honestly, in like the 4.5 to 5 range. But I was noticing that the S110V on this Spyderco was scratching anywhere from like the 5.5 to like 6. I was scratching some like feldspars with this. And that was always very interesting to me. And so I've decided that when I'm out in the field, I want to have a knife like this because I think it's more in line with most scales that I've been taught. But it's very interesting to think, what can a super high hardness steel actually do when it comes to Mohs hardness testing? So we are going to go and scratch some minerals here in a second, but I actually found a conversion calculator online, which is very, very cool. Disclaimer, we're going to read from their site. The hardness conversions from this calculator are not exact and should be used for reference purposes only. And that's because that's what we read earlier. Mohs is not a numerical value. It's a comparative scale, right? So I decided that I want to start off with a 5.5 on the Mohs hardness scale, right? That's what I've learned knife steels to be. A 5.5 Mohs hardness is equivalent to an HRC of 59. That sounds just about right. Most knives, I think, especially nowadays, are on that like 59 to 61 scale. Most steels too. Like I said, sometimes I was noticing that my case knife was more scratching like the 4.5 range. I would guess, let's actually see what 4.5 is. I'm guessing it's, you know what, I'm not even going to make a guess. We're just going to find out. Yeah. Whoo. So a 4.5 HRC, 4.5 Mohs is equivalent to a 43 HRC. Now, I don't think this knife is that soft. Might be, but I really don't think. But right there, one measure of difference, one jump in Mohs from 5.5 to 4.5, we went from 59 HRC to 43 HRC. So let's go ahead and let's see what a 6 is. Rockwell hardness of, so Mohs hardness of 6 is equivalent to the HRC 65. That's getting up there, right? That is getting up there. And so there are definitely, that's an attainable hardness. This is an S110V Spyderco PM2. I'm not sure what Spyderco heat treats their S110V to, but it could be pretty dang high. So very interesting. 65 HRC. That's definitely super steel range. That is some incredible steel. Let's see what a 6.5 is. I just want to see when we get to the point where HRC is just not applicable anymore. Okay, 6.5 is 69 HRC. Okay, let's go to a 7. 7 is a hardness of quartz. And I don't think, okay, we're going to do something real quick. Let's see if I can scratch this quartz with this. And we're going to go and do more scratch testing. We'll do it with a microscope so you guys can see better. This is just skating right off. So this quartz is harder than this S110V. Significantly harder, I will say. So let's see what a Mohs hardness of 7 is equivalent to in Rockwell. Yep, off the charts. Off the charts. I was kind of thinking that because 6.5 is at 65 HRC. The suggested range for this conversion, the Rockwell C is going to cap out at 69. So yeah, hardness of 7 and up, you're just going to be completely out of Rockwell C scale. So I'm guessing if you have something that's, you know, let's see, let's say 6.8 Mohs is probably going to be like 69 Rockwell. Yep. 6.8 Mohs is exactly 69 Rockwell. So that's about where Rockwell will peak out. And from then on out, there's no competition with Mohs, which I kind of expected there wouldn't be. The tool that is used most commonly in these indentation tests for Rockwell hardness testing is a little diamond bit. And so obviously you're not going to be using Rockwell C to measure anything that's approaching diamond hardness, because it'd be pretty hard to make that test work. So there we go. Let's go ahead and go scratch some minerals, and I'm kind of excited about this. We'll see what we come up with. So yes. Alrighty guys, so I've got a bunch of minerals out here, got a bunch of different knives. This is going to be fun. Something I want to mention real quick. I do not use coated knives when I do stuff like this. I prefer satin finish because coating messes with the hardness. So even if I scratch mineral with like just the very edge, I won't scratch the blade. Sometimes I scratch the blade of my knife to test the hardness of the mineral. I won't do that if I have a coated blade because the coating messes up. The coating has its own hardness. So yeah, we might scratch a couple blades today, but they will not be coated. Okay, so we're going to use this thing to magnify what we're doing. Should be fun. I guess cringe warning if you don't want to see knife blades getting drug against rocks. But yeah, let's go ahead and start off with this sample of beautiful blue fluorite. Nah, I'm just kidding. This piece is too yuck. We're testing the capabilities of this magnifying glass right now. Testing my setup here. Let's see. Oh gosh, look at that. Yeah, I'm going to take this opportunity to show off a little bit too. I found this the other day. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's so pretty. And the blue looks way different on camera though. This is like it looks like a kind of light blue on camera. It's a little bit darker in person. Okay. I'm going to put that aside. Also want to look at this little piece here. I think this is some malachite. Focus up, camera. Focus up. No. There we go. Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead and start scratching stuff. What do we want to scratch first? You know what? Let's actually do something that is going to be actually a little bit of a discovery. So I found this rock a while ago. See that beautiful blue? I assume this was azurite. One of my buddies recently told me that they thought it was a kind of turquoise, which I don't buy. But you know what? Let's do a little bit of a hardness test here. So turquoise has a hardness of 5.5 to 6. Azurite has a hardness of 3.5 to 4. So if I scratch this with my knife, then this is probably azurite. What knife do we want to scratch with here? You know what? Actually, let's grab the Gerber mini Sada. Just go ahead and make sure this is all in frame. Make sure you guys can see what is going on here. And actually, let's scratch the mini Sada's blade with this mineral. This is so awkward. I'm sitting behind this camera, which is behind this thing, and I'm looking through the camera, looking through this thing, trying to figure out what I'm doing here, but okay. Let us see. Nope. No scratch. That little white powder, that came off of the mineral. Azurite. Confirmed. Okay, Next up, let's go ahead and do something a little bit interesting. So here is an orthoclase feldspar crystal. This has a hardness of 6. Let's see if we can scratch it with this D2 mini SATA. And we don't want to apply a lot of pressure, just drag the blade across. This seems like a really good way to get myself cut. See the blades just skating right off? This mineral is harder than this blade, but let's bring out that S110V PM2 and let's see if we get a little bit of a different result. Careful aim. This is so awkward. Doesn't look like it. Yeah, that looks fine to me. All right, let's grab. I think we'll be able to see. This is a piece of amethyst I found the other day. Let's go ahead. It has a. This is quartz. Amethyst is just a fancy name for purple quartz. Hardness of 7. Nope, will not scratch. But I bet this will scratch the blade here. Focus. Focus. There we go. Let's go against the satin. Let's see here. Yep, you see that? Ah, shadows are getting in the way. Right there. Cool, cool, cool. All right, what mineral should we do next? Oh, let's look at this real quick. So this is an agate I found the other day. It's a decent one. Actually, I brought this one. This is a tiny little guy, but this one's really cool. Oh, it's so pretty. That one's pretty. Some more of that. Now, agate is just chalcedony, which is microcrystalline quartz. I wonder if that microcrystallinity will change the hardness at all, because sometimes it does. So focus up here. Huh. Gotta look at this with my own naked eyes. Yeah, it's actually taking streaks of the steel off, which is pretty cool. I want to now scratch it with this other quartz and see if they're the same hardness. Focus up, camera. I know you can do it. Did that scratch? That did actually scratch. Yeah, look. Right there. So this is slightly softer than crystalline quartz, which is kind of to be expected. Here's one that's really cool, actually. This is the mineral kyanite. And what's cool about kyanite is it has 2 different hardnesses, depending on whether you're going parallel or perpendicular to the crystals. If you're going parallel to the crystals, it's a hardness of 7, and if you're going perpendicular, it's a hardness of 5, which is kind of cool. I think I got that right. Let's see here. Parallel to the crystals, it's softer, harder when perpendicular. Okay, yeah, so if you're going with the crystals, it's softer. Let's go ahead and see if I can scratch this by going parallel with the crystals. Yep. Oh yeah, look at that. But now if we go across, knocking off some flakes, but let's see here. Yep, harder that way, and softer that way. Ooh, look, we broke a whole little crystal off. These are little kyanite blades, pretty cool. Huh. Alrighty, so now I think we need to do the real test. Let's get the case knife out. Let's see what we're rocking with here. So I think we're going to grab a chunk of fluorite. Here's some just lumpy, massive green and a little bit of purple fluorite. This should have a hardness of 4. Let's see if the case knife scratches it. Where's a good surface on this thing? Right here. Also, when I'm doing this, I typically use the back of my point just because it's easy to sharpen that back up. Did that scratch? Huh. I'm having a hard time telling. We've got like some dirt and stuff on here. So that's, like maybe that's scratching out. But, okay, right here. Right here. No dirt. That is just skidding across that. Wow. I mean, I knew case knives did not hold a very good edge. Holy cow. Let me go back to, okay. Let's get back to our calculator, our conversion calculator here. Let's plug in hardness of 4. See what kind of HRC we get. That's a hardness of 32H. No way. No. Nuh-uh. 32H. That's like titanium levels of hardness. It could be that there are inclusions in this piece of fluorite that are making it harder. Let's go ahead and let's grab this little thing here. This is another chunk of fluorite from the same area, but let's see, maybe, let's get a scratch right here. Wait, did that scratch? I can't tell. Maybe I do need to go get some colored fluorite. Let me go grab a piece of purple. Maybe that'll be able to show us better. All right, I'm back. I tried to grab some flat pieces. Wow, yeah, this lighting really washes out these colors. This is some purple fluorite, and this was a flat piece. I was looking for something that was flat, non-cubic. Wait. There we go. There's a scratch. Oh yeah, that's scratching readily. Look at that. That's scratching nicely. Huh. It's kind of what I thought. The other stuff might have some inclusions. Again, this is a field method. Like, this is not the most exact testing method, but there we go. Interesting. Very, very interesting. And actually, I do want to see with this other blade, because this other blade is the one that I typically use. So let's grab, you know what, let's test on this calcite real quick. If this doesn't scratch calcite, I'm going to have to like jump off a bridge or something. Thank you for finally turning off air conditioner. Yeah, there's a good scratch. Focus up. Focus up. See right there? Yeah, okay, good, good. Man, this green fluorite though, maybe it's got some kind of inclusions in it. It's making it a little bit harder. Let's grab this Gerber again. Focus. Focus. There we go. No, that's scratched. Yeah, that's scratching readily and deeply. So yeah, that case knife, wow, that is pretty soft. That's even softer than I was giving them credit for. Holy cow. Here we have a garnet in some schist. I want to see what happens with this guy. Now garnets, there are 6 different species of garnet, 2 different solid solution series. Focus up. They have a hardness of 6.5 to 7. So let's see. Yeah, this is a hard one. Very, very hard one. Hey, was that a scratch or did that take a... Nope. That one there's a scratch. So yeah, this is probably a hardness of about 6-ish. Yeah, so yeah, this is hitting... This S110V does hit a little bit above its weight class. Now this feldspar, it didn't scratch this feldspar, but this feldspar also might have some exsolution. In fact, you can see like those little lines in there. Might be some quartz exsolution in there. So let's grab another feldspar. There's another big chunk. Let's see if we can scratch this. Focus, focus. Zoop. Yep, we're scratching a little bit here. Yeah, very cool. Quick interjection. So when it came to the S110V, when I was scratching quartz with this, the quartz was taking steel off of the knife blade. However, when I was scratching this orthoclase crystal, there was no steel coming off. So this thing and this thing, they weren't scratching each other, which makes me think that they're close to similar in hardness. Now, this blade did scratch this piece of feldspar a little bit. Could be because of some of those things we talked about earlier, inclusions or elements mixed in with the chemistry. This also is perthitic. You can see there's a little bit of exsolution, this and probably plagioclase. So that could have affected the hardness there. But according to some sources I found online, Spyderco has claimed in the past that they heat treat their S110V to between 62 and 64 HRC. So if this is 64 HRC, that's getting close to that 65 HRC that we found is equivalent to a Mohs hardness of 6. And so that does make me think that this orthoclase and this S110V are about the same hardness, which is pretty freaking cool. Very, very cool. So yeah, this S110V, this super steel does punch a little bit above its weight class. This knife is actually punching a little bit lower, I would say. Let's see if we can find something that's kind of right in the middle. I'm actually going to use my new CJRB buoy pyrite. Let's see if we can get a scratch on some fluorite. There we go. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Scratched nicely. Okay. So it's scratching fluorite. Let's see if it will scratch. Let's go ahead and give me this thing back. Nope. Yeah, so this CJRB pyrite is right in the range for steel. So yay, very cool. And actually, I want to try. I've got another case knife here. Let's see if this one gives us different results. That was Case's carbon steel on that trapper. This is their stainless. Wow. Yeah, that is not great. I'm gonna have to go and get my Victorinox out of my truck, maybe. Oh, there we go. We're scratching there. Whoops, get on screen. Barely. Kind of, sort of. Interesting. Very interesting. I might have to disqualify case knives from being my mineral hardness testing blades. Very cool. Well, guys, there we go. We did some experimentation. What did we learn? Well, we learned that case knives are very, very soft. Now, I have said in the past that I prefer to use these simpler steels because I assume they'll give me more accurate results. Most of the time when I was taught how to use the Mohs hardness scale and stuff, it was using like a Swiss Army knife blade. So I automatically assume, use some softer steels, that's probably gonna give me more diagnostic results. And so I use my Swiss Army knife most of the time. I have used those case knives a couple of times though, and they are way, way soft. I think, however, after doing little experimentations and using this conversion calculator, I should be fine using most steels that have a hardness between 59 and 61. Steels within that 59 to 61, heck, even 59 to 63, 64, those should be completely fine. Those should fall within that 5.5 Rockwell hardness, probably 5.5 to maybe 5.8 Rockwell hardness, or Mohs hardness ranges. Anything higher, if we start getting into the 65 to 68 stuff, probably is going to be a little bit too hard, but there's very few knives that are that hard, very, very few. Rocksteads, that's the name of the knife I couldn't think of earlier. They can get up pretty high. I've heard that they get to HRCs of 70 on their ZDP 189. So I definitely would not want to use those steels for any kind of hardness testing. But honestly, anything that's in the more general heat treat protocol range of most companies right now should be a-okay to go. Very interesting little video. I think I had a lot of fun with this. I had a whole lot of fun researching and putting this video together. I learned a couple of things. Again, maybe I shouldn't maybe I should not trust those case knives. I made a whole short saying, yeah, because I was carrying that trapper for review, and I did use it a couple times out in the field, do some, but only 1 or 2 tests. And the test that I used was one time, me and a friend, we were out looking at some rocks, and we're finding some agates and stuff. And then we stumbled into some things that looked a little bit different. We're like, what is this kind of stuff? Use the case knife. The agates, of course, hard, did not scratch. The other stuff did scratch, and it turned out it was travertine. So, kind of cool, right? It worked out in that case. Ha ha ha. But yeah, those, has anyone done HRC testing on case knives? If no one's done HRC testing on case knives, someone should get on that. Anyways, that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Big shout out to my channel members. They do a lot for the channel. I really appreciate everything they do. If you want to be a channel member, there's a link below. Tell me, what did you guys think about this video? Did you have fun? I had a lot of fun. Hope this video was well enjoyed. If you enjoyed this video, leave it a like, comment below, and subscribe. I've been Gideon, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.